Hello fellow alchemists. So I'm going to show something interesting to you regarding the 12 Zodiac cell salt chart that was originally given to us by Eudora Innes Perry, the wife of George Carey, who wrote the God Man book, all about the Sacred Secretion. So we will get to that, but first I need to introduce this Inner Alchemy original blueprint of the Garden of Eden. This is a map of Ireland, and it's often said that Ireland is to be perceived as a fetus, sometimes called the bear, or a body facing west. So if we observe the profile, we're going to see that this profile of Ireland, we can fit the human body onto this really nicely. So this is the tailbone, therefore this would be the spinal cord, and this would be the occiput where the spinal cord flows into the brainstem. This lake here, biggest watery body of Ireland, we can call that the ventricular system. This is the top of the head. This is the face, where the eyes are located. This is the nose and the mouth. These are the hands. This is the umbilical cord. This is the feet with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 toes. And this would be the urinary and reproductive orifices. And this would be the anal orifice. So this is Ireland. So where is this idea coming from? Well, Rudolph Steiner wrote a book called The Electric Doppelganger. And in that book he wrote that God created paradise, and before paradise was invaded by Lucifer, as Steiner states, the invader energy, God mirrored the Garden of Eden, the original paradise, and he mirrored it and he put it off to the side and protected it. And so the world that we live in now essentially is a mirrored version of the Garden of Eden. So when we look at Ireland, if it is true that it is the original Garden of Eden, we can clearly see this human body as a macrocosm of the human body. And this can be seen when we overlay this very curious painting. This is a Daoist painting called the Nei Jing Tu, and it means the inner weaving. And it is basically an alchemical map used as a tool for inner alchemy. And it is the shape of a body which looks like an island facing west. So these two, the actual Ireland and this Nei Jing Tu, have very, very, very exact correspondences. And this is what my work has been about discovering. Because 7 years ago, I went around Ireland in a camper car, and I arrived into Dublin and went to Tara, and then this was my trajectory. I came a little bit like this, and I went all the way down here, and then I went out through Dublin. And when I got home, I thought, well, that was a very interesting trip, but nothing that spectacular happened. But when I got home and I looked on my wall, I actually had this map and this map next to each other. And that's when I realized, I was like, oh my God, they're the same. These are the same. So the work I've been doing and writing about is really to see if the monuments on Ireland, which we're going to inspect here, match this metaphysical human body, the alchemist's tool, which is all about how to manage the energy in the body to do what? The sacred secretion, or the raising of the Christ oil, the Jesus Christ within. So on this map, if we're going to compare it to Ireland, we can see that all of this area down here is water, and all the way up through here is water. This is a lake, and this is also a pool of water. So we can see that basically this is showing us the movement of waters from the lower to the upper and back down again. And that is the path of the cerebral spinal fluid that is produced in the ventricles of the brain, where this lake is, the watery, watery lake. So coming up to here, we've got these mountainous rocks, 9 peaks. Underneath them are underground caves, and this is a big lake. This is the top of the skull, or the cerebrum. Here we have a Maitreya Buddha in the position of the face, where the third eye is located, and the optical eyes. And then we have this region here, which is the nose and the mouth. And this would be the neck. We have this character called the foreign blue-eyed monk, and he's holding up the heavens. And next to him is a pool of water that has been split in two, and it has a little spring filling it up, coming from these underground caverns. This is the sun, this is the moon. Coming down further, we have a 12-storied pagoda representing the throat, the cartilage protecting the throat. Coming down further, we have this spiral, and this is said to represent the Milky Way. And this little boy standing on the Milky Way is called the cowherd boy, and he is holding the constellation of Ursa Minor, Ursa Major, which is the Big Dipper. And when we track the Big Dipper over the 4 seasons, we get the swastika. This is showing movement of the heavens, the as above, so below. Coming down further, we find this region here, which is shaped like a liver, growing trees, and the liver element is wood in Chinese medicine. Then we have this character here. She's called the Maiden at the Wheel, and she is spinning a red thread, seen here, going all the way from this region, which is the kidneys, up into the brain, encircling where the pineal gland would be, behind the third ventricle. The pineal gland is, apart from the kidneys, the most highly vascularized organ in the body. So you can see this thread, the red thread of Judah. Coming down, we have a man ploughing an ox. This represents the intestines. We have 4 Tai Chi symbols with bright light coming out. We have this very large fire here, a smaller fire below, and a boy and a girl working water wheels. We have a gate here where the water passes through, and this we can consider the tailbone. This is gate 1. Here is another gate. level with the heart. And then up here, it's pretty hard to see on this one, there is a little gate right behind where the sun is, and that is gate 3, and that's the occiput. And that is the place of the crucifixion as the cerebral spinal fluid flows up into the brain and the ventricular system. So that's the basics. If you want more details, have a look at my books, because I go really in depth in there. So to get more of an idea about the connections between these two, I've made a map and I've overlaid this Neijing 2 on top of the human body to show that the regions I've just described are actually anatomically correct when we stand the body up facing north to south. In terms of the sacred secretion and using the Qigong practice called the microcosmic orbit, we can see on this diagram, using the same imagery of the body facing west, the path of the microcosmic orbit from the Du meridian, which is also the sun, to the Ren meridian, which is the moon, and the path we take joins the Ren and the Du at the lower half of the body, around the tailbone. We follow the Du meridian all the way up through the brain, and then where does it join? It joins in the mouth. So the Du sun meridian joins the moon meridian in the mouth when we put our tongue to our upper palate. And this joins the sun to the moon, known as the Ren meridian. And that is one cycle of the microcosmic orbit. So how does this all relate to the 12 zodiac? Well, we can see here on this map, there's a decipherment of megaliths on Ireland by a man called Anders Cowlins. And he has got here, not all of them, but he's got a really great collection of the constellations, the as above in the heaven, so below, on the original blueprint of the Garden of Eden, according to Steiner. This is Ireland. So let's go around and identify the 12 zodiac. Sagittarius up in the skull, the brain. Scorpio is the face. Virgo is here. Hercules I'm putting in, even though he's not one of the 12 zodiac, because this is technically where Libra should be, but Libra's not on this Anders Cowlins map for whatever reason. Maybe it's lost. Then, as we come down, I'm just going to include Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, as we've just discovered in this painting. Then we've got Leo, Cancer. Gemini is actually a little bit more interior, but if it projected out, it would be in this region. Taurus, Aries, Capricorn, and what's missing? Aquarius and Pisces. So that we've got 1, 2, 3 stones actually missing. And so if we drew a line, a zodiac wheel around Ireland, and we divided the sectioning off the zodiac, we would get this region of Sagittarius, Scorpio, Libra, Virgo, Leo, Cancer, Gemini is kind of like this, and then we've got Taurus, Aries, Pisces, Aquarius, and Capricorn. So I know it's not perfect, it's not looking that pretty at the moment, but you get the idea, because the reason why we use the 12 zodiac animals is basically so we can navigate space in the constellations. Like there's 88 constellations projecting down, but the placement of the zodiac animals is actually quite equidistant to each other. So if you're trying to navigate the night sky and you located these 12, then everything else fits in between. So basically it's a way to remember the map of the night sky without having to remember every single detail, which is pretty smart. So if we started comparing these zodiac constellations to the human body, all of the bodies, all the same, we're going to see that in this Sagittarius region, it's up here, the top of the brain, the cerebellum, the grey matter of the brain, or the cerebrum, the grey matter of the brain. And then in this sort of face region, we've got Scorpio. Scorpio is the eagle, the scorpion, and the phoenix, right? The three parts. And then in this region, we've got Libra. So this is actually the scales of balance. What is Libra? And what is happening in this region is this is the mouth, and this is where the Ren and the Du meridians actually connect together. So this is Libra, the upper and the lower, the scales of balance. And then as we come down in this area called Sligo, we've got Virgo, associated with Caromore, Creevy megaliths. And then as we come down to Galway, this is where we've got Leo. County Clare is Cancer, where we would technically have this umbilical cord, where this maiden is located as the Virgin Mary, the mother. And then coming down to Gemini, which is actually between Offaly and Laos, in that region. That would be kind of around here. And then we've got Taurus in this sort of area here. And then Aries in this Wicklow region. And then above Dublin, we've got Pisces, and then we've got Aquarius, and then we've got Capricorn. So how does all of this relate to the 12 mineral cell salt zodiac wheel? So let's have a look at Eudoras Map. When did she make this? I guess if George Carey wrote the God-Man book in the 1920s, it's been around since around that time, 1920s. So she's got, you know, all of the constellations in order, obviously, and then each mineral salt is relating to each zodiac animal. But, and then she's listed out what body zones the mineral salt is attributed to, and then also what the actual function of the mineral salt is. Mostly it's really correct, but there's one thing that is not. If we turned it up this way and we mirrored this map of Ireland with all of the megalithic constellations, carbon dated to I think around 3000 BC, probably older with all of that carbon dating stuff, you never know. And so in the position of Sagittarius, and then we've got Scorpio, Libra, Virgo, Scorpio, Libra, Virgo, Leo, Cancer, Gemini, and then we've got Taurus, Aries, Pisces, Aquarius, right? But if we look at the position of the body that she's drawn on, this is a human facing east, not west. So if this theory of mine is correct, that Ireland is the original Garden of Eden, and it is a body or a fetus or a bear facing west, that matches the Neijing to the tool for inner alchemy of raising the sacred secretion, the Kundalini energy, which is following the path of the microcosmic orbit, then what would happen if we change the body position and we mirrored it? Would this mirrored body position now face west? Yes. So if we put this back on and we just overlaid the body into its correct position, we would get something that looks like, oh, there's a bug. It's a little ant. It's actually a big ant. We would get this. So you can see that by flipping the body, this mineral cell salt wheel doesn't change with respect to each zodiac matching what particular cell salt, but it does change the association with the body region. Therefore, the next question would be, what does each of these mineral cell salts do, and do they relate to these particular regions of the body? And that's where it gets a little bit creative, you could say, because the mineral cell salts are, they have quite a different variety of functions. But if we take Aries, potassium phosphate, or Kali-phos, which is here, Kali-phos, and it's now in this position of where the kidneys would be, if we're going in the wheel like this. And Eudora's got it hitting on the brain for the reason that it is said to be good for mental and physical exhaustion, nerve and brain cell nutrient, strong antiseptic, going for the cerebrum, or the grey matter of the brain, the spinal cord, the nerves, blood plasma, muscles, present in all fluids and all body tissues. This can relate directly to the kidneys in the sense that the kidneys are the powerhouse of the whole body, and the kidneys store essence, or Jing, vital life force essence, which relates to also the brain and the spinal cord and the bone marrow. So we can see some crossovers with Aries being related to the kidneys in this chart. So what about Taurus? Where I've got Taurus here, what is right in that region? That is the anal orifice, our waste management, waste disposal part of the body. And when we look into the function of natrium sulfate, which is sodium sulfate, it is for excess water elimination and a liver cleanser. Ears, face around the lower jaw, cerebellum, neck, throat, liver, gallbladder, and then intestinal fluids, kidney and liver function. The chief duty is to eliminate excess water from the body. So yes, we've got urine obviously as a watery waste product, but also in the bowel movements we've still got an excess water evacuation factory happening there. So that one's kind of matching up too. Gemini, so here we've got this Gemini, hasn't changed position, it's just changed the body region, and this would be going directly up into the reproductive organs. And it is for, so potassium chloride is for blood conditioner, cleanser and detoxifier. This is the cell salt. This cell salt is the mineral worker of blood that forms fibrin and diffuses it throughout the tissues of the body, used in all cells, red blood cells, mucous membranes. So this is interesting because this region of the reproductive area, when you think about a woman's menstrual cycle, basically cleaning out the body of blood every month, we can relate it back to this blood conditioner, blood detoxifying agent. And then coming around to Cancer, this is in the region of, yeah, you could say the urinary bladder and also the lower intestines. Calcium fluoride is for tissue elasticity, tooth enamel, bone coating. It's a fiber builder, elastic fibers of the skin, the blood vessels, tendons, ligaments, joints, cartilage, all the connective tissues, bones and teeth. and it's the second most abundantly stored micromineral in the body, second only to iron. So in terms of that being particularly related to cancer, well, what is a cancer in the zodiac? It is a crab with a skeleton on the outside. So that's all about this connective tissue, the skeletal tissues, the bones. So, you know, in terms of its relatability back into the location of the anatomy, it's not so super linked. So I've definitely got some work to do for refining this. And then when we come to Leo, magnesium phosphate, Leo is the heart. Leo relates directly to the heart on the wheel, on this Naging 2 Irish wheel, relating back to this character here, the cowherd boy standing on the Milky Way, holding the Big Dipper, which is the swastika, moving around the 4 seasons. And the mineral salt for Leo is magnesium phosphate. And what do we know about magnesium? It's actually really amazing for the nerves, the muscles, the heart. If you had ever gone into hospital with a heart attack, what they give to people when they're under a heart attack is a big injection of magnesium. So magnesium phosphate is for brain and nerve nutrient, antispasmodic, and a general painkiller. It's a constituent of bones and teeth, white matter, brain tissue, nerves, muscles, red blood cells, thyroid, and liver. It's a muscle relaxant. That's why people take it for restless leg syndrome. And it binds with calcium, and it's an electrolyte. So now we're coming up to Virgo, which is here. She's got it as this, she's called it the solar plexus, but she's got it more on the bowels. Virgo in the solar plexus is basically directly opposite the kidneys. So this is this kidney solar plex sharing the same nerve plexus. And this is the region technically of the stomach, the digestive organs, the stomach and spleen. And this is also the Virgin Mary, the maiden at the wheel, the only feminine character on this diagram apart from these 2 twins at the bottom, the Gemini twins. And also the constellation of Virgo, she is often represented holding a sheaf of wheat, representing the harvest. So the harvest is where we harvest our crops for food, right? So that is relating energetically to the stomach. But then the 12 mineral salt function is actually a kidney cleanser. So somewhere along the way of sharing that nerve plexus, there's some connection there. So then if we move up to Libra, she's put it as the bladder and kidneys. It is an acid neutralizer. So this is sodium phosphate. And this is really interesting in terms of the region where I've put it when we compare it to this Naging 2. This is the mouth. This is the region of the mouth, and this is the parotid gland squirting saliva into the mouth, which are these 2 bodies of water parted. This is Moses parting the Red Sea, which is the mouth, which opens and closes when we are doing the microcosmic orbit, connecting the tongue to the roof of the mouth. So this is a really interesting one actually, because it's saying here that Libra, sodium phosphate, is in food. It can act as a leavening agent in baked goods, controlling the even melting of processed cheese, control the pH of foods, modify the textures, act as an emulsifier, change the surface tension, acid neutralizer, brain, nerves, muscle, red blood cells, intracellular fluids. So in terms of how that one is really important to know for this practice of the monthly sacred secretion, it's all about saving the seed, which is the saliva. So in this microcosmic orbit practice, when we move our energy from the lower Egypt to Israel, and then back down up the sun and down the moon, there is a process of swallowing the saliva, and this is known as creating or forming the golden elixir, and this we could consider the manna from heaven. And part of saving the seed is about swallowing the saliva as you're doing the energy practice. But another part of saving the seed is about what you eat. So the diet, right? And so I've discovered in my work through inspecting what the Jewish people do for Passover. After Passover, they have a festival called the Festival of Unleavened Bread. And this is a 7-day festival where they will avoid leaven like the plague. They will clean leaven products out of their house. They will cook with different equipment so they don't have to have their leaven used cooking where touching this unleavened food preparation. And so when I looked into it, I was like, well, why do they do that? What's the chemical reaction going on there? What's the inner alchemy that they're trying to do? After Passover, they've got a 7-day period where they're not eating leaven. So when you look into leaven, it is actually all about, it's a bacterial fungus that is yeast, essentially. It's yeast. And when you, process the yeast with sugar and a bit of climatic heat, it starts producing carbon dioxide bubbles, and that's what makes the bread rise. And those carbon dioxide bubbles have a byproduct, which is ethanol, which is alcohol. And what did George Carey tell us in his God-Man book? He said that one should avoid alcohol at the time of raising the seed so you don't cut the mineral cell salt casing. So that's leaven, that's Libra, and that's all about the mouth, which is there. And it's all about swallowing the saliva and saving the seed. It's not just all about the sex energy. This is one of the saving of the seeds. But the other saving of the seed is the saliva and the proper nutrients. I'll do another video about that one a bit more in depth. And then we come up to Scorpio, calcium sulfate. This one, I can't find the direct relationships yet, but believe me, I will keep trying. Basically, this mineral salt is for detoxing mercury, lead, aluminium. So it's a heavy metal detoxifier, which, does make sense actually if it's in this region of the brain, because when heavy metals get in the brain, we've got things like Alzheimer's and behavioural problems, and not only in children but in adults. So that actually works. And so it's a blood purifier, and it disintegrates the old cells. So it's just basically a detoxifying mineral salt. And then if we come up to Sagittarius, we've got silica. She's put it with the hips, the thighs, and the sort of knee area. But I've got it up in the head. And it is also a heavy metal detoxifying agent. And it's a skin conditioner, anti-stress, and it is for the hair, the skin, the nails, the periosteum, membrane covering and protecting bones, nerve sheath, bone tissue, connective tissue, and the brain. So in terms of its region, it does kind of have a fit, hair, the brain. Also, it's, the most external region towards the heavens. So in terms of thinking about like periosteum is, what protects the bones on the outside casing, and it's also the outside casing of nerves. We've kind of got this outside casing energetic to it, which is what? A skull. Outside casing protecting. So then we've come up to Capricorn, which is calcium phosphate. It's a cell restorer, and it's the worker of albumin, carries it to the bones and uses it as cement in making the bone. It's in abundance in all tissues. It strengthens bones and helps build new blood cells. So I haven't thought too much about the connection here, but what we can connect is the fact that Capricorn is an earth sign coming down to Aquarius. We've got air, Pisces is water, Aries is fire, And then we've got earth again, air, water, fire, earth, air, water, fire. So these are the 3 energy centers of the body. And if we split these elements into earth, air, water, fire, earth, air, water, fire, we would get this. And we would get this. And then this one is actually forming an east-west flip. And that's what I think has happened with this. Needed to be flipped. The east and the west needed to be flipped for it to work as a system. So then, if we're going to come down to Aquarius, in the region of technically the upper lungs, the back of the neck, base of the neck, and this is sea salt, natrium myrrh, sodium chloride. And its main job is a water distributor, and it's about the blood and the circulation, the ankles, which is probably why she's got it there. But it's also about the spinal cord, the electrical force of the nerves, supports the smooth and even flow of electricity through and across the nerves. So that's pretty interesting, because when we get up to that region of the body, that's the place of the crucifixion, when we're raising the electromagnetically charged cerebral spinal fluid up into the brainstem. That is the junction that we have to pass through, which is the Aquarius, the water bearer. This main tissue salt's job is the water distribution, the water bearer. So it totally matches with Aquarius. And then it's also about the cartilage, the bone, the gut lining, kidneys, and water distribution. And it's really interesting because Aquarius is technically an air sign, but it's all about water. So this is what you have to learn when you're doing all this kind of stuff, is like as above, so below, so within, so without. There's always a flip. Like the above will also relate to the below, and the inside will relate to the outside. So it's always these moving wheels. So then if we come down to Pisces, we are in the region of the heart and the lungs. And we're under the element of water. So this ferrous phosphate, this is iron. So this is all about blood, like directly iron carrying oxygen inside the blood. And so this mineral salt is an oxygen carrier, anti-inflammatory, first aid supplement, contributes to bone and muscle health, aids the exchange of oxygen in the blood. So really, this one's pretty clear to me. We've got lungs and we've got a heart, and what do they do together? Well, the lungs breathe in the air and they absorb oxygen into the lungs, and then that gets fed into the blood through the heart, and so the blood can then deliver blood with oxygen inside the blood through the arteries to every single cell in the body. So that is basically how the two organs work together. And that's what that cell salt is good for in that position. So that's the end of this inspection. You know, I really like to delve into the depth of things to find out, is that a thing or is it not a thing? Do we need to maybe review the old information, update it? So, you know, I'm calling this, what I've created here, a bit of an updated version of Eudoras cell salts map. She's not wrong by any means, but with tweaking it a little bit, I think it's a little bit more exact. And then also putting this Ouroboros, the snake eating its tail, in the position of the mouth, where we put the tongue up to the upper palate when we do the microcosmic orbit, so we can save the seed by swallowing the saliva and electromagnetically charge the fluids in the body with this refinement process that is called the Sacred Secretion. Yeah, so if you want to get a hold of this poster, I'll put them up on my website. You can download and buy them, because it's just nice to have an updated version if some people want that. I'll make some more space around so it's a bit more easy to draw on. And yeah, if you want to find out more about this Irish Inner Alchemy link, I've written a book series on this, and there's also an online course that I've just produced. So really delving into finding the perfect method of saving the secretion when the moon comes into your sign every month. Like when we overlay the biblical information with the Daoist information, Daoists, who are basically followers of nature, they follow the middle path, the middle way, not too much out of balance, become the balanced one, the Jesus Christ on the cross between the two thieves. Becoming the road to balance is what Daoism is. And so the Daoist alchemists, they have external alchemy, which is making potions and cauldrons. They have internal alchemy, which is making potions within your own body, and that's what's saving us, and that's what the Sacred Secretion, raising of the Jesus Christ, is all about. It is internal alchemy. So when we overlay what the Daoists have taught us through their poetry, handed down through the masters over the years, we can overlay it directly onto the biblical teachings. And why is it all relating back to Ireland in the first place? Well, if we follow the work of Conor McDairy, Senior and Junior, they have written books claiming that the Bible was originally an Irish book. So you can see how it all kind of ties together. If Ireland is the original Garden of Eden, and you could say the owner of the Bible, the one where the Bible comes from, then we've got the land of the Sacred Secretion, right? Because that is what is written in the Bible. And then somehow the Daoists must have been given this information, and they replicated it as an artwork, as a teaching. Maybe they visited Ireland. But it's very, very interesting to start seeing these overlaps. And it is all for the reason of finding the perfect way to do the Sacred Secretion in terms of stages. The Inner Alchemist Daoists have actually given us very specific timings and stages, which I've got all about in my online course. I'll do a few short videos explaining a little bit more about that as well. So yeah, that's the end. So if you want to find out more about this system as a way to perfect the raising of the Christ, the Jesus Christ, check out my website, check out my books. They're there as PDFs for download. My online course is there. There's a promo code for that to get a discount. And I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.